Imagine holding a secret so powerful that acting on it could literally lose you the entire war.
Right.
Or, imagine having a digital key that is so incredibly complex, it would outlast the lifespan of the universe itself.
It's wild to even think about.
Really is. And today we're doing a deep dive into that razor-thin line between abstract, theoretical math and raw physical survival. We're going to be exploring the brilliant, completely sprawling universe of Neal Stephenson's novel, Cryptonomicon.
Yeah, and we've got a whole stack of excerpts from the text today. It's fascinating because it weaves together these seemingly completely different things. You've got World War II adventure, the actual birth of modern cryptography, and then a high-tech 1990s finance.
Right, which sounds like an insane mix, but it works so perfectly.
It really does. It's a phenomenal text because it traces this massive shift in human history. We're essentially following two generations of two very different families.
The Waterhouses and the Shaftos, right?
Exactly. So you have the mathematically gifted Waterhouses, who basically see the entire universe as numbers and logic. And then you have the battle-hardened Shaftos, who experience the universe through sheer physical survival. Blood, dirt, that sort of thing.
Right, and the goal for us today, for you listening, is that by unpacking these stories, we can actually map out the invisible mathematical architecture that protects your emails, your bank accounts, and, just your private life today.
Yeah, because it all starts way back in the 1930s and 40s.
So I want to start right at the foundation of all of this, with a kid named Lawrence Pritchard Waterhouse. The text gives us this incredible window into how his mind works from a very, very early age.
And his mind does not work like a normal kid's mind.
No, not at all. He's a prodigy, but he literally experiences the world differently. He understands sound, for instance, entirely as mathematics.
Yeah, the source gives this really striking example of his childhood. If a loud fire engine goes by, the blaring siren doesn't bother him at all. It's just noise. But if a hornet gets into the house, flying in this broad Lissajous curve and droning almost inaudibly.
Wait, hold on. Stop right there. What is a Lissajous curve? And why on earth would the sound of a bug cause a math prodigy physical pain?
Right, so a Lissajous curve is the graph of a system of parametric equations. They describe complex harmonic motion.
Okay, I'm going to need an analogy for that one.
Fair enough. Think of it like two pendulums swinging, right?
Yeah.
But at right angles to each other and at slightly different frequencies.
Oh, okay, so they're kind of out of sync.
Exactly. If you trace the path they make together, it creates these really complex intersecting figure-8 patterns.
Right, I can picture that.
So when a hornet flies, its wings aren't just beating up and down in a simple, clean wave. They are creating this complex, shifting acoustic frequency based on its crazy trajectory.
So to a normal person, it's just a bug buzzing around the room.
Yeah, but Lawrence's brain automatically decodes the acoustic wave. He literally hears the mathematical dissonance. He hears the irrational numbers clashing in the frequencies.
Wow.
The math is, to him, ugly. And because his brain is entirely wired to seek mathematical harmony, that ugliness translates into a sensory overload that actually feels like physical pain.
That is wild. It's like his brain is a radio receiver that's just stuck on a channel of pure math.
That's a great way to put it.
But this hypersensitivity to sound actually leads him to something that completely changes the trajectory of his life, which is a pipe organ.
Yes, the pipe organ is crucial.
So his father is a preacher at this small, kind of dingy college in Virginia Boulger Christian College, and the whole town reeks of paper mill fumes. But the chapel houses this massive booming pipe organ.
And Lawrence is totally captivated by it.
Right, and one day the organ breaks. So Lawrence gets to help the organist, who happens to be a retired math teacher, open up the hood and actually look inside the machine.
And this is the foundational moment for Lawrence. And really, it's the foundation for our entire discussion today. When he looks inside that organ, he doesn't just see a musical instrument. He sees a mechanism.
Like a machine.
Exactly. He sees rows of pipes arranged from long to short, and the tops of the pipes form this upward-tending mathematical curve.
Right, and the math teacher points out that the pitch of the note is just a physical manifestation of that geometric curve.
Yeah, the length of the pipe dictates the wavelength of the air, which dictates the note. But the real epiphany happens when Lawrence looks at the airflow system underneath.
Because it's a grid, right? The pipes sprout from this broad, flat box of compressed air.
Right. All the pipes for a given note line up on one axis, And all the pipes for a given stop line up on the perpendicular axis.
And a stop is like the timbre, right? Like making the keys sound like a flute or a trumpet.
Exactly. So you have an X and Y axis of air valves. When you press key on the keyboard, air is directed to the right note.
But the genius part, the part that totally blows Lawrence's mind, is the preset buttons. The organist can punch a single mechanical button, and a system of pneumatics instantly pulls out a highly specific combination of stops across the entire grid. It completely changes the instrument's sound profile in a fraction of a second.
Right, but why do you think that's so revolutionary to him?
Well, I mean, on the surface, it just sounds like a clever mechanical shortcut, like setting the radio stations in your car so you don't have to dial it manually.
It's much deeper than that, though. Lawrence has a profound philosophical revelation here. Up until this point, he had always assumed that an instrument capable of producing the infinite soaring complexity of, say, a Bach fugue, he thought the machine itself must be infinitely complex.
Oh, I see. He thought the machine had to match the output.
Exactly. But looking into that flat box of air and valves, he realizes that a machine that is incredibly simple and logical in its underlying design can produce results of infinite complexity if you just give it the right instructions.
So the complexity isn't in the wood and metal. The complexity is in the sequence of the preset. So it's essentially a mechanical computer. It's a programmable machine.
Yeah, it is a system of logical gates. Air either flows or it doesn't. It's binary. The pipe organ is an ancestor to the punch cards used in early weaving looms, which of course directly inspired the first computers.
That's incredible.
And this realization that simple binary mechanical rules can generate infinite complexity carries Lawrence all the way to Princeton University.
Right. He ends up in Fine Hall, which is where the math and physics departments are housed.
Yeah.
But officially, he's an engineering student.
Yeah, he's supposed to be solving highly practical problems. Like, he's trying to calculate the exact optimal shape for bicycle sprocket teeth.
Which sounds so mundane compared to what he ends up doing. But he doesn't do it the normal way. Instead of just testing some metal gears in a lab, he approaches it purely through abstract math.
Because of course he does.
And he finds an exact mathematical solution for the perfect sprocket tooth. But there's a catch. To actually calculate the numbers, it would take a quintillion slide rule operators a quintillion years to finish the math.
Which is completely useless to his engineering professor.
Naturally.
The professor rejects the paper flat out, but this bizarre, highly theoretical approach catches the attention of a guy who hangs around Fine Hall, an energetic, eccentric British cyclist named Alan Turing.
Alan Turing, obviously a massive historical figure. But what is Turing doing hanging around a kid trying to design bicycle gears?
Well, Turing is drawn to Lawrence because Lawrence has accidentally stumbled into the exact philosophical problem Turing is trying to solve.
The limits of computation.
Yes. Turing isn't just a cyclist or a standard mathematician. He is wrestling with the very nature and limits of mathematics itself. So Turing introduces Lawrence to another mathematician, a German named Rudi von Haeckelfieber.
And the three of them end up going on this overnight bicycle camping trip to the New Jersey Pine Barrens.
Which is just a fantastic scene.
I love it. Imagine this. You're sitting around a campfire in the middle of this scrubby, desolate pine forest. They're drinking schnapps, swatting mosquitoes, and having what might be one of the most important conversations in human history.
Literally setting the groundwork for the modern world.
Exactly. Turing starts explaining that Bertrand Russell and Alfred North Whitehead had recently written this massive book called Principia Mathematica. They had tried to rebuild all of mathematics from scratch.
Right.
And Turing says they wanted to prove that all math can be expressed simply as strings of symbols.
Let's break down why Russell and Whitehead did that, because it's crucial to understand. For centuries, people thought of math as just a way to count physical things. 2 apples plus 2 apples equals 4 apples.
Right, highly practical.
But as math got more complex, dealing with imaginary numbers, infinite sets, geometries of higher dimensions, it detached from physical reality. Russell and Whitehead wanted to prove that mathematics was absolutely logically flawless on its own terms.
So to do that, they tried to reduce all math to a set of pure, undeniable logical symbols.
Yeah. And it famously took them over 300 pages of dense, symbolic logic just to prove that 1 + 1 = 2.
300 pages just to prove 1 + 1 = 2. That sounds less like math and more like an obsession.
It was a monumental effort.
But why does it matter? Why does it matter if math is just strings of symbols?
Because if math is just strings of symbols, it means mathematics is fundamentally a code. And this is where Turing brings up another name by the campfire, Kurt Gödel.
Okay, who was he?
Gödel was a logician who looked at Russell's massive book of symbols and had a terrifying realization. Gödel realized that if all math is just strings of symbols, then those symbols can be encoded into numbers.
Wait, encoded how?
Think of it like a simple substitution cipher. Let's say the logical symbol for equals is assigned the number 5. The symbol for plus is 6. You can take an entire mathematical formula and translate it into one gigantic, unique number.
Okay, I follow you.
This is called Gödel numbering. But here is where it breaks the universe. If formulas can be encoded into numbers, then you can write mathematical formulas that act on other formulas.
Meaning, math can talk about itself.
Yes. In a logical sense, math becomes self-aware. Gödel used this to write a mathematical formula that essentially translated to, this specific statement cannot be proved.
Well, no, it's a paradox.
Exactly.
Like saying, I am lying right now. If you're lying, then you're telling the truth, which means you're lying. Just brace your brain.
Right, but Gödel did it with rigorous mathematics. He proved that in any logical system, there will always be true statements that can never be proven by the rules of that system. Mathematics is fundamentally incomplete.
Wow.
This completely shattered the dream of a perfect, flawless mathematical universe. And this leads to the core problem Turing is obsessed with. The German mathematician David Hilbert had posed a famous challenge called the Entscheidungs problem or the decision problem.
Okay, what was that?
Hilbert wanted to know, even if math is incomplete, is there a mechanical step-by-step process we could use to look at any mathematical statement and determine if it's provable or not?
So he wants a machine that can sort the solvable math from the unsolvable math.
Yes. And Turing tells Lawrence and Rudy by the campfire, I've answered Hilbert's question, and I did it by inventing a theoretical machine.
And this is the birth of the Turing machine.
Exactly. Turing envisions an infinitely long paper tape divided into squares, and a machine head that can read a symbol on a square, write a symbol, change its internal state, and move left or right. That's it. It's incredibly simple.
Hold on. Let me try to use an analogy here to make sure I get it. It's kind of like a blind man reading Braille on an infinitely long conveyor belt.
Okay, yeah.
The blind man only knows what he's touching right now, and he has a notebook in his other hand. Based on what he feels on the belt and what page his notebook is on, he either erases the Braille, punches a new bump, turns the page in his notebook, and steps one pace to the left or right.
That is a phenomenal analogy, yes. The notebook is the state register, or the preset rules. And Turing proved that this simple mechanism, just reading, writing, and moving one step at a time based on a preset list of rules, could compute literally any mathematical problem that is humanly computable.
Which brings us right back to Lawrence Waterhouse and his pipe organ.
Full circle.
Lawrence hears this, and his mind immediately connects the dots. He realizes the Turing machine is just a universal pipe organ. He tells Turing, you can turn your universal machine into any machine by changing the presets.
Right. The tape is the air, the read-write head is the valves, and the state register is the preset buttons.
Exactly. But Lawrence takes it one step further. He applies Gödel's logic to it. If every preset rule and every piece of data on the tape can be represented by a string of numbers, you could theoretically arrange all those possible strings into a massive table.
Yep.
And Lawrence realizes, just by the sheer scale of infinity, there must be some numbers, some formulas that simply cannot be computed by this mechanical process. The machine would just spin forever, never coming to a halt.
It proves that the Entscheidungs problem is unsolvable. There is no universal mechanical way to know if a problem can be solved.
And Lawrence's reaction to this is so pure. Instead of being depressed that math is broken or incomplete, he exclaims, so I guess there's some point in being human after all.
Which is such a great line.
It really is.
Yeah.
Because if a machine, following strict logical rules, can't compute everything, then the human brain, which can invent these concepts in the first place, must be doing something more than just following mechanical rules. Our intuition, our creativity, is mathematically necessary.
It is a beautiful, profound moment sitting around a campfire. These three guys have mapped the absolute boundaries of what machines can know. They have laid the theoretical foundation for every modern computer that will ever exist.
And this is a massive, but all these high-minded, esoteric discussions about theoretical math and the physics of symbols suddenly become matters of visceral, bloody life and death.
Because the world is falling apart.
Exactly, because while the mathematicians are in the woods talking about about infinity. The actual physical world is catching fire. World War II is starting.
Yes, the text forces a brutal shift from the abstract to the intensely physical. We move to Shanghai in November 1941, and we meet Marine Corporal Bobby Shafto.
And Bobby Shafto is the polar opposite of Lawrence Waterhouse.
Complete.
Shafto is a brawling, unpretentious, haiku-writing Marine. Right now, he's standing on the running board of a careening truck, gripping a Springfield rifle. He's literally trying to count the syllables in a haiku in his head while his driver navigates a chaotic, terrified city.
And it's important to understand what is in the back of Shafto's truck. He is guarding 1.5 tons of top-secret radio equipment and cryptographic codebooks from Station Alpha.
Which was an Allied intelligence outpost in the international settlement of Shanghai.
Right. The Americans know war with Japan is imminent, and they are frantically trying to evacuate their cryptographic gear to a gunboat on the Bund, the riverfront. They are trying to save the machines that intercept the abstract signals.
But the reality of the city gets in the way. The route they chose to the river goes right through the banking district on a Friday afternoon. And the source material paints this incredibly vivid, almost absurd picture of the physical reality of information, which, in this case, is money. In Shanghai at this time, currency is essentially meaningless. It's printed by various rival banks on cheap paper, sometimes literally on old newspapers. It only has value because it's supposedly backed by physical silver kept in the bank vaults.
Right, it's a crisis of trust. The paper money is just information, right? It represents an abstract claim to wealth. But because everyone knows the war is going to destroy the banking system, nobody trusts the abstract information anymore.
They want the real thing.
Exactly. So every Friday, the rival banks hire hundreds of coolies, manual laborers, to carry massive, heavy wooden boxes of the other bank's currency through the streets, demanding to exchange the paper for physical, heavy silver.
And the scene is so chaotic. The coolies are carrying these massive boxes on long bamboo poles. Because the boxes are so heavy, the coolies have to sing to each other to keep their footing in a perfectly synchronized rhythm.
It's just a wall of humanity.
Yeah. So Shafto's truck, trying to save the most advanced cryptographic secrets in the world, is completely blocked by what the text calls a horizontal forest of mighty bamboo poles and a pentatonic cacophony of singing laborers.
It is the ultimate collision of abstract information with physical reality. You have paper promises colliding with the sheer weight of silver, blocking the radio waves that carry military secrets.
But almost poetic.
And right at that moment of gridlock, a massive explosion rocks the riverfront. The Japanese have hit a gunboat.
Wow.
The abstract tension of impending war instantly becomes physical violence. The street clears in an instant, the truck smashes through the abandoned wooden boxes, and physical money is sent flying into the air like a blizzard. The paper is worthless now. Only survival matters.
And Shafto himself embodies this physical reality. The text recounts an incident from a year prior that perfectly captures his character and the rising tensions. Shafto is wandering around Shanghai, and he walks into a restaurant filled entirely with Nipponese military officers.
Just casually walks in.
Right. And he doesn't do it as an act of war or to pick a fight. He does it because he's a curious guy, and he wants to know about the raw fish they're eating.
He is a man who interacts with the world through direct physical experience. He sits down, orders sushi, and notices a thin, dark green, translucent sheet wrapping his food. He genuinely asks what it is.
And a very hostile naval lieutenant tells him it's seaweed.
Right. And Shafto, who is drunk but completely fearless, pushes back. He says it tastes like a pumpkin vine.
Which is just such a Shafto thing to do.
Totally. The tension escalates, and it ends with Shafto being physically carried out of the restaurant by several soldiers, which triggers a massive, brutal street brawl between the American Marines and the Nipponese soldiers.
But the crucial detail here is who Shafto ends up fighting in the street. He's tackled by a husky, pink-cheeked soldier who had been sitting quietly in the corner of the restaurant reading poetry. Yes, and this poet soldier fights in a way Shafto has never seen before. He uses judo. He literally paralyzes Shafto with nerve punches. Shafto is a street brawler, but this guy uses the physics of leverage and anatomy to completely dismantle him.
He turns Shafto's physical force against him.
Exactly. And as Shafto lies helpless, paralyzed on the sidewalk, the poet soldier looks down at him and calmly says, "It is not seaweed. The English word is maybe calabash."
That soldier is Goto Dengo, who is a Japanese engineer and soldier. And what's fascinating is that out of this brutal physical violence, they form a strange cross-cultural mutual respect.
Yeah, Shafto tracks Goto Dengo down later, not for revenge, but to learn judo. He recognizes a superior physical system when he sees one.
And in return, Shafto teaches Goto Dengo how to throw a baseball properly.
Shafto literally says he's teaching him how not to throw like a girl. It's such a human, grounded interaction amidst the buildup to a world war.
It is. But it pays off in a very grim, terrifying way on the day Shafto is evacuating Shanghai. As Shafto's gunboat pulls away from the dock, fleeing the incoming invasion, Goto Dengo is standing there.
Right.
Shafto throws his metal helmet at him as a joke, the sort of tough guy farewell. Goto Dengo catches the helmet, winds up with the perfect American baseball form that Shafto taught him, and hurls a rock wrapped in a 1,000-stitch headband back onto the deck of the boat.
Shafto catches it, unties the traditional headband, and realizes the rock is actually a live Japanese hand grenade.
Yeah.
Goto Dengo hasn't pulled the pin. It's a joke, a terrifying physical souvenir. It's his way of saying we are at war now.
Exactly. The time for poetry and baseball is over. The physical destruction has begun. Which brings us right back to Lawrence Waterhouse.
Okay, let's catch up with Lawrence.
It is now the morning of December 7, 1941. Lawrence is in Hawaii. He is standing on the deck of the battleship USS Nevada.
And what is this mathematical genius, this man who corresponds with Alan Turing about the fundamental limits of computation during the attack on Pearl Harbor? He is playing the glockenspiel in the ship's marching band.
I know. It's so absurd.
I couldn't believe this part. Why on earth is he playing a xylophone made of metal bars?
Because of the rigid bureaucracy of the military machine at that time, when Lawrence enlisted, the military gave him standard aptitude tests. They tested for things like mechanical repair, physical endurance, basic clerical skills.
Right, checking boxes.
Exactly. They had no testing parameters for a genius theoretical mathematician. The machine couldn't comprehend his value, so it categorized him as essentially useless for technical work and put him in the band.
It is the ultimate example of a misallocation of resources. You have a guy who could theoreticalize the architecture of a computer, and they tell him, here, hit these metal bars with a mallet.
And Lawrence is literally standing on the deck playing the Star-Spangled Banner when the first wave of Japanese dive bombers arrives.
And he doesn't even realize it's real at first.
Yeah. No, his highly analytical, disconnected mind thinks it's just a terrifyingly realistic training exercise. He even mentally approves of the military using ethnically correct pilots to make the drill more immersive.
Wow. He's totally out of touch with the danger.
He is completely detached from the physical danger until he watches a bomb plunge straight through the deck of the USS Arizona moored right next to them.
The destruction of the Arizona is described in incredibly stark, almost physics-based terms. The text describes this massive wave of pure concussive energy passing over Lawrence.
Yeah.
His glockenspiel, which is just a collection of perfectly tuned metal resonant bars, absorbs this unbelievable quantum of energy from the explosion, becomes a burning, humming, radiating monster of vibration.
The sound must have been horrific.
The sound it produces is so intense it feels like red-hot knitting needles being driven through his eardrums. He finally manages to unbuckle the instrument from his harness, looks at it, and sees that the metal bars have been permanently bent and impact welded together by the heat and the shock wave.
So what does he do?
He just tosses it overboard into the burning oil of Pearl Harbor.
That image, the ruined glockenspiel sinking into the burning oil, is deeply symbolic. The destruction of the fleet at Pearl Harbor forces an immediate, brutal paradigm shift in the Allied command.
Everything changed that morning.
The American military suddenly realizes that having a lot of brawny men on big steel ships isn't enough to win this new kind of mechanized technological war. The old systems are broken. They desperately need brains.
They need people who can understand the invisible, abstract forces that are directing these bombers.
Exactly. Lawrence's transition from a completely useless glockenspiel player to a vital strategic asset represents society radically reallocating its intellectual resources for sheer survival.
The military finally realizes that the guy who sees the world as a math problem might actually be useful. So with his ship destroyed and his instrument gone, Lawrence is reassigned. They pull him out of the standard enlisted ranks and put him in a highly classified room where his mind can finally be weaponized.
And this brings us to Station Hypo.
Interstation Hypo. It's this covert naval intelligence outpost hidden in the basement of a building in Pearl Harbor. Lawrence is ushered into a makeshift classroom where he meets his new commanding officer, Commander Schoen.
And Commander Schoen is quite a character.
He is a trip. This is not your typical spit and polish naval officer. Yeah. Lawrence walks in, and Schoen is standing in front of a chalkboard, completely out of uniform.
Right, what's he wearing?
He's wearing an incredibly filthy terry cloth bathrobe. The elbows are worn out, the sleeve is black with graphite from constantly rubbing against pencil paper, and the robe is covered in these little circular cardboard dots that have been punched out of teletype tape.
He sounds unhinged.
He's furiously chewing on an unlit pipe, just vibrating with nervous energy.
Schoen turns his back to the room of newly reassigned men and writes a series of numbers on the chalkboard. 1917, 17, 1914, 20, 23, 18, 19, 8, and so on.
Just a wall of numbers.
Right. And he tells the room that to an untrained eye, this looks like a meaningless sequence of random numbers. But to a Japanese naval officer, it means something entirely different. He tells them it's an encrypted message intercepted from the Japanese naval code.
And while Schoen is preparing to give this long, dry, hours-long lecture on the history and theory of cryptography, Lawrence just pulls out a pencil, looks at the board, and starts doing a frequency analysis right there on his desk.
He just solves it in real time.
Let's walk through exactly how Lawrence breaks this, because it's brilliant.
Let's do it. Frequency analysis is the oldest and most fundamental tool in code breaking. It goes all the way back to the Arab mathematician Al-Kindi in the 9th century.
Okay.
The premise is simple. In any language, some letters are used much more often than others. In English, E is the most common letter, followed by T, A, O, I, N.
Right.
If you have a simple substitution cipher where one number or symbol always stands for the same letter, the underlying frequency of the language will bleed through the disguise.
Okay, so Lawrence tallies up how often each number appears on Schoen's chalkboard. He quickly notices that only 16 different numbers are used in the entire message, and none of the numbers are larger than 26.
So it maps perfectly to an alphabet.
Exactly. He calculates in his head that if it's a random substitution, there are over 111 quintillion possible ways to arrange the letters. He can't just guess blindly.
But he doesn't have to guess blindly. He looks at his tally. The number 18 is the most common number on the board. Assuming the message is either in English or Romanized Japanese, he tests the English hypothesis first. If E is the most common letter, he temporarily assigns E to the number 18.
Then he looks at the opening sequence of the message. 19, 17, 17, 17, 19. He looks at his tally and sees that 19 appears 4 times in the whole message and 17 appears twice.
And this is where linguistic logic comes in.
Right, you can't have 4 vowels in a row, and you can't have 4 consonants in a row in a standard word. Since 19 is more common overall, it's highly likely to be a vowel, probably A or O. Let's say it's A. So the word starts with A, then 2 identical letters, then another a blank blank A.
Furthermore, Commander Schoen had given them a massive clue without realizing it. He hinted that this was a message relevant to a naval officer right after the attack on Pearl Harbor.
So Lawrence intuits the context of the communication. He guesses the first word is a military command. What military command fits a double letter A?
Attack.
Attack. That means 19 is A, 17 is T, 14 is C, and 20 is K. He plugs those letters back into his tally. A, T, T, A, C, K, and suddenly the rest of the numbers start to form a recognizable shape.
Just cascades from there.
He finds the E he identified earlier, he spots the word pearl, and the whole thing unravels like a pulled thread.
And Lawrence is so excited by the sheer elegance of the math falling into place that he completely forgets military decorum. He jumps up, knocks over some desks, and yells out, "Sir, the message is attack Pearl Harbor December 7, sir."
And Schoen, to his immense credit, doesn't get angry that a subordinate interrupted him.
Yeah.
He doesn't miss a beat. He immediately turns to his assistant and says, "Get this man a desk, get him a promotion, and get him a copy of the Cryptonomicon."
Which is an incredible moment, but we have to clarify what the Cryptonomicon actually is in this universe. It's not a published book you can find in a library.
Right, it's not a textbook.
No, it is a massive, highly guarded, messy pile of papers and notes sitting in the corner of Schoen's office. It contains literally everything the United States military knows about the mathematics of cryptanalysis.
I read that it's so highly classified that the officers physically prevent the janitors from ever entering that wing of the building.
Exactly. They are terrified that a cleaner might accidentally throw away a page that contains the secret to breaking a new cipher.
It's the physical embodiment of the nation's combined mathematical intellect. But as amazing as the Cryptonomicon is, it's just notes. The real treasure of Station Hypo, the thing that changes the course of the war, is locked inside a bank vault wired with explosive charges.
And this is a machine called Indigo.
Right. And this is where the genius and the profound human tragedy of Commander Schoen really hits us.
Yeah, because the Japanese high command wasn't just using simple substitution ciphers like the one on the talkboard. For their most highly classified diplomatic and naval communications, they were encrypting their messages using an incredibly complex electromechanical cipher machine. The Americans called this machine Indigo.
It's similar to the German Enigma machine, right?
Exactly. It's a rotor cipher. In a simple cipher, A is always 19. But in a rotor machine, every time you press a key, physical internal rotor spin, changing the electrical pathways.
So it changes every time.
Yeah, so the first time you press A, it might encrypt as X. The next time you press A, it might encrypt as Q. The cipher alphabet changes with every single keystroke. It creates millions of possible shifting permutations. The cipher text just looks like pure, chaotic white noise.
And here's the crazy part. The Americans had intercepted the radio waves. They had the ciphertext. But they had no idea what the Indigo machine actually looked like.
Right. They didn't have a stolen manual. They didn't have a captured machine.
They didn't know if it used 3 rotors or 4, or if it used electrical plug boards like Enigma. They were completely blind.
Commander Schoen had absolutely nothing but endless sheets of intercepted, seemingly random numbers. Yet, using purely inductive reasoning, just staring at those lists of chaotic numbers in a windowless basement for months on end, he began to see the ghost in the machine.
It's unbelievable.
He analyzed the statistical anomalies in the noise until the underlying mathematical architecture of the rotors revealed itself to him. And based entirely on the mathematics of the ciphertext, Commander Schoen built a perfect, functional, physical replica of the Japanese Indigo machine.
I want to make sure we truly grasp how insane that is. It's like listening to a recording of a symphony played on an instrument that doesn't exist on Earth. And just by analyzing the sound waves, you go into your garage and build an exact physical replica of that alien instrument.
Right.
He reverse engineered the hardware entirely from the math.
It is arguably one of the greatest feats of human intellect in the history of warfare. But the mental cost of performing that level of inductive abstraction was absolute.
It destroyed him.
Yes. The sheer effort of holding that much complex, shifting mathematics in his head literally broke Schoen's mind. By the time Lawrence arrives, Schoen is suffering from constant nervous breakdowns. He is heavily sedated, paranoid, and wearing that filthy bathrobe.
Which explains so much about that first scene.
Right. Lawrence looks at the Indigo replica and realizes that whatever cognitive leap happened inside Schoen's head to build that machine was what Turing would call a non-computable process. A Turing machine, following logical steps, couldn't have done it. It required a terrifying leap of human intuition.
It broke him. Yeah. But because he broke, the U.S. Navy can now read the Japanese codes. With Schoen incapacitated, Lawrence is tapped to take over the heavy lifting.
And his security clearance is upgraded to the absolute highest level, Ultra Magic.
What does that mean exactly?
Ultra refers to the intelligence gathered from breaking the German Enigma, and Magic refers to the intelligence from the Japanese Indigo. And this promotion leads Lawrence to a massive epiphany during the build-up to the Battle of Midway.
Right. Lawrence is reading the foundational operating document for handling this decrypted intelligence, and he gets to paragraph 3 of the Ultramagic Directive.
And this is crucial.
It says, no action is to be taken on information herein reported, if such action might have the effect of revealing the existence of the source to the enemy.
This is the agonizing paradox of cryptography.
Yeah, I'm going to put myself in the shoes of a Navy admiral here. You have broken the enemy's unbreakable code. You know exactly where their aircraft carriers are going to be on Tuesday at noon. You have the perfect opportunity to ambush them and save thousands of American lives. But if you intercept them perfectly, without any prior reconnaissance flights, the Japanese command will immediately realize, wait, how did they know we were there? Our code must be broken.
Exactly. And if they realize the code is broken, they will change the encryption keys, or worse, upgrade the machines entirely. You will be plunged instantly back into darkness, completely blind. The strategic advantage you hold for the entire war would be gone.
So as the admiral, I have to ask, what does this all mean? If I know a catastrophic attack is coming, how can I not act? Isn't the whole point of breaking a code to use the information to win battles?
This is where Lawrence has to apply the principles of information theory.
Okay, lay that on me.
The most famous pioneer of this field was Claude Shannon, who actually worked alongside Turing during the war. Information theory suggests that information isn't just words, it's the resolution of uncertainty. And Lawrence realizes that the global battlefield is what they call a noisy channel.
A noisy channel?
Yes. Think of the war as a giant communication system. Every physical action an army takes, moving a ship, bombing a base, sending out a scout plane, or even deliberately not moving a ship, transmits information back to the enemy. The Japanese are constantly observing American actions, trying to deduce American intelligence.
Let me try an analogy here to see if I'm tracking. It's like playing high-stakes poker, and you have a mirror behind the other player so you can see all of his cards.
Right?
If you fold every single time he has a better hand and raise every single time you haven't beat, he's going to figure out you're cheating within 10 hands.
Right.
To protect the fact that you can see his cards, you have to intentionally lose some hands, you have to bluff badly sometimes, you have to manage your luck.
That is exactly it. It's a macroscopic game of loaded dice. If a pair of dice comes up sevens every single time, the casino knows they're loaded immediately. But if they only come up sevens 1% more frequently than a normal pair, it just looks like a lucky streak. It's mathematically indistinguishable from random noise.
So the Allies have to carefully mathematically manage their luck. If Japanese merchant ships happen to cross paths with American submarines slightly more often than pure statistical probability suggests, the Japanese will just chalk it up to the fortunes of war.
But if American subs intercept every convoy, the gig is up.
So the horrific reality is that the Allied command has to intentionally let some attacks happen, let some ships sink, to protect the source of the intelligence.
The existence of the information becomes vastly more important than any single tactical victory or human life.
It is a profound moral burden. You have the ultimate knowledge, but you are paralyzed by it. You have to perfectly simulate ignorance.
Yeah. And this exact tension, the desperate need to protect the source of your information, the paranoia of being constantly surveilled and analyzed by an adversary, this didn't die when World War II ended in 1945.
Yeah, it just changed form.
In fact, if we shift forward 50 years, we see that Lawrence Waterhouse's grandson is fighting the exact same battle. But this time, the military-grade paranoia has been downloaded to the personal computer.
Right. We jump 50 years to the late 1990s. We meet Randy Waterhouse, the grandson. And the setting couldn't be more different. Randy is sitting in first class on a 747 flying over the Pacific, heading to Manila.
He's a completely different kind of guy.
Yeah, he's a hacker, an entrepreneur. He is partnered with his intensely driven, somewhat terrifying friend Avi to build a tech startup called Epiphyte Corp.
Avi is a fascinating character. He is deeply obsessed with the Holocaust. His entire worldview is shaped by the historical reality that governments can and will turn on their own citizens. He believes that the only defense against totalitarianism is unbreakable cryptographic communication.
He wants to build a data haven. A data haven. Like a tax haven, but for information.
Yes, a physical location where servers can store encrypted data run by individuals entirely free from government repression, subpoenas, or corporate scrutiny. And their business plan to fund this is brilliant. They're targeting the Philippines to build a telecommunications empire because, as Avi explains, it is an innately hedged market.
I didn't quite grasp the economics of this at first. Why Manila? Why not Silicon Valley?
Avi looks at the macroeconomic reality of the Philippines at that time. The domestic economy is struggling, which has created a massive export of human labor. These are the overseas contract workers, or OCWs. You have millions of Filipino nurses, maids, construction workers, and sailors working all over the globe, separated from their families.
Okay.
Because Filipino culture is deeply intrinsically family-oriented, these OCWs desperately need cheap, reliable telecommunications to call home.
Ah, I see. So if the Philippine economy stays poor, Epiphyte makes a fortune selling cheap, vital telecom services to the overseas workers.
Right. But what if the political situation stabilizes? What if the Philippines gets its act together, foreign investment pours in, and it becomes a rapidly developing Asian economy, like Singapore or Taiwan?
Then what happens?
If that happens, the demand for general high-bandwidth telecom infrastructure for local businesses will absolutely explode. As Avi says, it's perfectly hedged. Either the economy fails or it booms, and Epiphyte wins either way. It's the perfect cover and funding mechanism to build their secure network.
That's incredibly smart. But to build this data haven, they need security. Not just a good password, but absolute, mathematically unbreakable security. Which brings us to the Ordo encryption software.
Right.
Avi flat out refuses to communicate with Randy using normal email. He knows that every server it bounces through can be intercepted. He insists they use Ordo. And while Randy is sitting in his suite at the Manila hotel, jet-lagged, listening to the roar of diesel container trucks out in the street, Avi orders him over a secure line to generate a new cryptographic key.
But not just a standard key. Avi demands a 4096-bit key.
We really need to pause and explain what a 4096-bit key actually means, because it highlights the sheer scale of modern cryptography.
Let's do it. Most modern encryption is asymmetric, meaning it uses a public key to lock the data and a private key to unlock it. The security relies on mathematical trapdoor functions, usually involving the multiplication of massive prime numbers.
Right.
It's incredibly easy for a computer to multiply two large primes together to create an even larger number, but it is practically impossible for a computer to take that massive resulting number and figure out which two primes created it. Factoring primes is computationally exhausting.
So the bits refer to how long that number is in binary code.
Exactly. A 256-bit key is generally considered incredibly secure today. It's a number that is 2 to the 256th power. That's a massive number. But Avi wants a 4096-bit key that is 2 to the power of 4096.
That sounds big, but how big is it really?
Well, to visualize this, the estimated number of atoms in the entire observable universe is roughly 2 to the 270th power. A 4096-bit key isn't just larger than the universe, it makes the universe look like a grain of sand.
And generating a key that massive requires true entropy. It requires pure chaotic randomness.
Yes.
Computers are deterministic. They follow rules. They're actually terrible at being truly random. They usually just use an internal algorithm to fake randomness, which is called pseudo-randomness. If a hacker figures out the algorithm, they can guess your key.
Which is why the Ordo software forces Randy to use his physical body to generate the entropy. The software asks Randy to type randomly, aimlessly on his keyboard. The computer's internal processor contains a highly precise quartz clock. When Randy hits a key, Ordo records the exact time of the keystroke down to the microsecond.
Let me use a padlock analogy here.
Yeah.
It's like trying to build a combination lock. A bad combination lock uses your birthday. A pseudo-random lock uses a math equation to pick the numbers. But Ordo acts like a padlock whose internal tumblers rearrange themselves based on the chaotic microscopic variations in the room, the temperature fluctuation, the dust hitting a sensor.
Right, it needs the chaos.
In Randy's case, the software calculates the intervals between his keystrokes. It discards the predictable numbers, like the fact that human fingers generally type at a certain speed, and keeps only the most chaotic, least significant digits, the tiny, unpredictable muscle twitches of a jet-lagged guy sitting in a hotel room. It harnesses biological chaos to forge mathematical certainty.
And because 4096 bits is such a colossal number, Randy has to sit there mashing the keyboard for a ridiculously long time. Randy, being a math guy like his grandfather, runs the numbers in his head.
What does he figure out?
He calculates that if an adversary took every single particle of matter in the known universe, turned each atom into a microchip to form a single cosmic supercomputer, and set that universe-sized computer to work, trying to guess his 4096-bit key by brute force.
The universe would physically die of heat death before the computer found the right combination. I'm going to push back hard on Avi here. Isn't that complete, total overkill? It's like building a titanium vault, burying it at the bottom of the Marianas Trench, and surrounding it with nuclear landmines just to hold a teenage diary. Why on earth is Avi so paranoid? Who's he hiding this startup data from? Does he think the NSA really cares about their telecom contracts in Manila?
Randy asks him essentially the same question. He asks Avi, how long do you want these messages to remain secret? 5 years? 10 years? The assumption is that business secrets expire. Once the deal is done, who cares?
Right.
But Avi's justification is bone-chilling. Avi replies, I want them to remain secret for as long as men are capable of evil.
Wow. Okay, that shifts the perspective completely.
It does. It highlights the massive philosophical evolution of cryptography that Stephenson is exploring. In World War II, governments used brilliant individuals like Lawrence Waterhouse, Alan Turing, and Commander Schoen to break codes to help the state win a global war against fascism. Cryptography was a weapon of the government.
But in the 1990s, the paradigm is completely flipped.
Completely. Now, individuals like Randy and Avi are using military-grade mathematics to hide from governments, state actors, and multinational corporations.
The power dynamic has inverted.
Exactly. For Avi, driven by the generational trauma of the Holocaust, a 496-bit key isn't just a password for an email server. It is a profound political statement. It was a mathematical hedge against the future overreach of authority. He is using the immutable laws of mathematics to carve out a space where human tyranny cannot reach. As long as prime numbers work the way they do, the data is safe no matter who is in power.
But here's the ultimate irony of the book. For all this high-level perfect math and this quest for unbreakable encryption, the humans actually operating these systems are still messy, flawed, and completely prone to endless petty squabbling. You can build a perfect lock, but a human still has to hold the key.
This is a major theme of the text. It explores the inevitable clash between abstract theory of pure technology and the muddy, exhausting reality of human existence. Stephenson illustrates this perfectly by showing us Randy's backstory back in California, long before he flew to Manila.
Right. Randy wasn't always a high-flying tech entrepreneur. After college, he was stuck working a dead-end, low-paying job in a university interlibrary loan department.
Quite a contrast.
Yeah, his only real escape was playing hyper-realistic, highly complex fantasy role-playing games with Avi and their friends. They were obsessed with the mechanics of world building. And one day, this grad student named Andrew Loeb walks into the library.
Andrew Loeb is doing an incredibly tedious, highly detailed anthropological study on the energy budgets of indigenous Northwest Indian tribes.
Oh, man.
He is poring over historical records to track exactly how many calories a hunter expended tracking an elk in the winter versus exactly how many calories the hunter gained from eating the meat. It's pure, dry survival data.
But to Randy, looking at this through the lens of a game designer, this raw data is the holy grail. He sees it as the perfect underlying algorithm for a role-playing game. He wants to create a computer program to perfectly simulate starvation, weather, and survival mechanics based on real historical data.
So he actually builds it.
Yeah. Randy spends a year and a half of his life writing this incredibly complex code on the university's mainframe computer in his spare time.
He builds a beautiful logical system, but then human greed enters the system. When Avi, who is already starting to make money in tech, offers to buy Randy's software for $1,000 just to mess around with it, Andrew Loeb completely loses his mind.
Loeb, who contributed nothing but the public research data, suddenly assumes he is a 50-50 business partner.
Right.
He hires aggressive lawyers and threatens to sue everyone involved.
And it gets worse. The university finds out Randy used their mainframe to write the code, so the university's legal department steps in and claims ownership of the software too. This beautiful piece of logic is instantly buried in a swamp of legal encumbrances.
Randy ends up having to declare personal bankruptcy just to pay his own lawyer to get out of the mess.
It's a nightmare of human bureaucracy. And Randy doesn't learn his lesson immediately. Years later, he tries to build a Silicon Valley startup with some friends.
Oh, this part hurt to read.
They write great code and secure $10 million from a group of Hollywood investors. But the Hollywood guys treat the tech founders like disposable talent on a movie set. The investors orchestrate a hostile boardroom coup, seize control, sell the core technology to a Japanese electronics firm to make a quick profit, and completely gut the company.
So Randy learns the hard way that brilliant code cannot protect you from predatory human behavior. The math is perfect, but the humans are corrupt. And this frustration with human irrationality mirrors his domestic life with his girlfriend, Charlene.
Charlene represents the absolute extreme of abstract academia. She is a humanities academic who writes highly theoretical, postmodern papers. Her latest masterpiece is a deconstructionist essay about beards.
Wait, I have to ask, why does Stephenson spend pages detailing an academic essay about facial hair?
Because it perfectly encapsulates the academic detachment from physical reality. Charlene argues in her paper that the ability to grow a full beard is a biological privilege accorded by nature solely to white males. Therefore, she claims, choosing to grow a beard is a sociocultural transgression.
A transgression.
Yeah. She writes that the beard is a physical boundary, a mask that symbolizes the emotional unavailability and the inherently oppressive nature of tech-oriented white men.
Which is, obviously, a direct, thinly veiled attack on Randy himself, because Randy happens to have a beard. She's using academic jargon to analyze her boyfriend's face.
Exactly.
The tension between Randy, the pragmatic engineer, and Charlene, the academic theoretician, reaches its climax at a dinner party in their shared Victorian house.
It's one of the most revealing scenes in the book. The house is full of visiting academics attending a humanities conference titled War as Text, which tells you everything you need to know about how they view reality.
Totally.
A famous, incredibly pompous British professor named Dr. G.E.B. Kvistic is holding court in the living room. He loudly declares, "How many slums will we bulldoze to build the information superhighway?"
He's using the term superhighway literally. He thinks they are going to physically bulldoze low-income neighborhoods to lay down asphalt for the internet.
Yes. And when one of the few technically literate guests points out that the internet is a digital network of fiber optic cables, not a physical road, Kvistic doubles down. He argues that since all human discourse is built from metaphors, the literal truth doesn't matter. His critique of the power dynamics of the metaphor is equally valid.
He is essentially saying that the objective reality of the engineering doesn't matter, only the subjective academic interpretation of it.
Right.
And Randy, the guy who actually spends his life writing code and building these networks, the guy who just got crushed by Hollywood lawyers, finally snaps. He looks at Kvistic and says, the information superhighway is a bad metaphor because I say it is. If I'm sick, I don't ask a plumber for advice. If you are ignorant of a particular subject, your opinion is completely worthless.
It's the ultimate revenge of the engineer. But the room turns on him. The academics immediately label Randy an elitist, white male technocrat. They argue that his ability to read and understand technical manuals is a form of structural privilege.
They totally dismiss the fact that Randy is largely self-taught and went to underfunded public schools while they are tenured professors.
Exactly. So why is this dinner party and the game company and the beard essay in a book about World War II cryptography?
It's a fair question.
It is the thematic core of the narrative. Stephenson is drawing a massive, uncrossable line between two types of people. You have people who do things and people who talk about things.
I see. It's the builders versus the critics.
Exactly. Look back at the history we just discussed. Alan Turing didn't just write philosophy. He conceptualized a machine that changed the trajectory of human history. Commander Schoen sacrificed his own sanity to build a physical machine to stop a war.
Yeah.
Lawrence Waterhouse decoded real enemy movements that determined whether thousands of sailors lived or burned to death in the Pacific. They engaged with the physical, mathematical truth of the universe.
And on the other side, you have Charlene writing academic papers deconstructing facial hair, and Kvistic debating the socioeconomic implications of a metaphor he doesn't understand, while contributing absolutely nothing to the architecture of the future.
It is the physical reality crashing into the abstract. Whether you are Corporal Bobby Shafto dodging shrapnel and brawling in the streets of Shanghai in 1941, or Randy Waterhouse trying to forge a data haven in Manila in 1997, reality eventually punches through abstract theory.
Always.
You can sit around a dinner party, debating the sociological implications of a hand grenade, or the literary metaphor of a computer network, but eventually the bomb goes off. Eventually the data is either secure or it isn't. Mathematics doesn't care about your essay.
So let's bring this all together. We started with Lawrence Waterhouse looking inside a church pipe organ, realizing that simple logical presets could generate infinite complexity. We saw how that realization mirrored Turing's theoretical machine, mapping the limits of human knowledge.
We covered a lot of ground.
We really did. We watched how the blood, oil, and noise of Pearl Harbor demanded a terrifying new kind of intellectual warfare, forcing Commander Schoen to break his own mind to reverse engineer a machine he had never seen. And we watched how that exact same military-grade paranoia evolved 50 years later, ending with Randy Waterhouse mashing his keyboard in Manila to forge a 40196-bit digital key to hide from the future.
This deep dive has shown us how the mathematics of secrecy fundamentally shaped the modern world.
It reveals that cryptography isn't just an abstract math problem. It is the invisible architecture of trust. It is the tool humans use to carve out survival in a world that is capable of immense evil and violence.
Couldn't have said it better.
And that leaves us with a final thought for you, the listener, to mull over as you go about your day. Think back to Commander Schoen in that windowless basement at Station Hypo. He didn't have the key to the Japanese code. He didn't know the language.
All he had was the noise.
Right, the metadata, the intercepted, encrypted strings of numbers. Yet just by looking at the patterns in that noise, the frequency of the signals, he was able to map the entire machine and break the system.
Which is terrifying when you think about today.
Exactly. Today, every single one of us leaves trillions of encrypted digital footprints every single day. Every time you swipe your credit card, every time your phone pings a cell tower, every search query you type. It's all encrypted, sure. But ask yourself, if a modern-day Commander Schoen, armed with artificial intelligence and massive computing power, were to look at the massive stream of your daily digital noise, the timing of your keystrokes, the locations you visit, the frequency of your emails, even without the key to unlock the actual messages, what hidden patterns about your life would they be able to decode?